Welcome, everyone. This is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about the interesting thing behind mindset. Because when we look at our mindset is going to be one of those things that are fluctuating, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Now, we want to focus on the good stuff, right? We want to focus on what's going to give us the best results, what's going to enhance our life. It's not so much of finding the negatives and making sure they don't happen. It's about inputting the positives, paying attention to the positives, and allowing those to be what is forefront in our thinking and our mind. However, in our world today, we don't necessarily look at all of the good things that come to us all the time. But when a bad thing happens, oh boy, it's the end of the world. There's a big problem with how we think. But there's also an interesting scenario that happens every single time our mind is moving. That we can look at what we can do, what we have done, what we will do. But the most important part is where we are right now. Because if you're not in a good place right now, it doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter where you're going. If you're not in the good place, and I'm not talking about like financial support or, financial freedom or maybe even health-wise, like your mind. Is your mind good? Is the quality of your mind good? Think of someone who you might consider sick. And sick not in the sense of like they have a cough, but sick in like, I can't believe this person exists. And I'm not saying that we need to go find these sick people and change them, or we need to find these sick people and ridicule them or berate them. It's just, we have a different opinion for someone we can support. Think of a president, political leader. It can even be someone in your family that has a different value or different belief that you can say, how could you have such a sick mind? Our world today is split almost, right? 50-50, right? People are going to be thinking this way. People are going to be thinking that way. There was once, I believe, for a U.S. election, it was like a 61% in favor for the president. I forget the name of the president. The issue there was everyone, for the majority of people, was like, we're choosing this. Now, there's always going to be 10% that automatically were not going to pick the other guy because they can't change. They just won't. There's certain people that won't change. So if you look at the, out of 100%, if you're going for something, maybe you want to start a school, maybe you wanted to create a program, maybe you wanted to start a business and your business is like creating these super cool cookies or super cool like lollipops with your name in it and stuff like that, and you can have like a little toy in it or something, right? So it's a very niche business. There will be 10% of people, regardless what you do, how you speak to them, what you market to them, that will not like your business because they just might not like you. 10%. That's not a big number. When we look at the whole scheme of things, 10% can be everything because we can focus on the things that are missing versus the things that we have. For example, I use me as an example. I don't mind. I'm far from perfect. When it comes to the podcast, when it comes to marriage, being a parent, being a son, a brother, a human being, I'm far from it. But what I will say is the intent that I have, it comes through. It comes through most of the time. Hardly ever malicious. Why? Could it be my upbringing? Could it be my values and my beliefs? Could it be the systems that I have created and put in place? There's many different things, but what I can tell you that rings true is that the mindset that I have is one of commitment. It's one of confirmation. It's one of can't stop, won't stop. But the reality is, I can stop. The reality is, I can cheat. I don't have to be committed. I can lie. I don't have to be truthful. That's the reality, right? But it's not my reality. Some people, they take on a false reality sometimes when it comes to their mindset. They say they can't do something. They cut themselves short, shy of what they're capable of. They might limit themselves by some degree. It could be the smallest of things too. I don't want to quit this job because then I won't have a job. It's like telling an airplane, and I know airplanes can't talk, but having an airplane say, well, we can't give you too much runway because then we're going to be invading into the forest. Well, why even put an airplane landing strip there in the first place? So we look at the different nuances of life, which are going to be for us. Recently, I've been thinking quite a lot about mindset and the journey and how we are just progressing as people, as a society, community. What I can say is that we are coming full circle, and it's very interesting. I talk about the saying quite a bit. They say tough times create strong men create easy times or good times, easy times or good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And it goes back to hard times create the strong man. Now, this doesn't just have to be for men, it could be for women too. It's just the saying. We come full circle. Sometimes I look at where we are in that circle. Almost always, we look at we're in good times and we are struggling, right? So like we're in good times and we're going to be weak soon, versus that we're weak and we're going to be strong soon, because we like to look at the optimistic side of things, right? But then, of course, there's going to be people who cover that up. They're struggling, but they don't want to admit it. They're afraid to ask for help. I find that to be interesting because if you need help, let's say you're swimming, and I was just talking to my family about this the other day, where there's someone swimming in Barton Springs or Barton Creek over there, like the Barton pools over there, and they have lifeguards and stuff. This guy out of nowhere just started drowning. Now, he wasn't really drowning. I was like looking in his direction, but he was kind of like underwater, like trying to swim, but he wasn't swimming properly. So he was kind of sinking more than he was swimming. So the lifeguard jumped in, but not like in a rush to save him, because the lifeguard can literally see like he was good, but there was still something, like amok. So they went in, got him out, got him to the side. And this guy was literally this close. And I'm talking about maybe 5 inches, maybe 6 inches away from the side of the pool. He could have just grabbed up and grabbed onto the ledge. But when you're going through that panic, sometimes the simplest thing, even if it's only 6 inches away, is not going to happen. So either way, the lifeguards jump in. They get him to the side of the pool, whatever. And the guy is kind of like almost distraught. Like he's like, oh my God, I can't believe I was, drowning and I was suffering or something like that, right? And then the way they do things over there at Barton Springs, Barton Pools over there, they make you sign a waiver if you want to go back in the water. Because it's like, we can't be liable if you're going to go back in and put yourself at risk again. We're not going to kick you out saying, hey, you can't be here if you can't swim, because there's a good amount of people who can't swim. But they're basically saying, if something happens to you now, we are not liable for whatever is going to happen. The funny thing about that is not so much that he was drowning or anything. Like, I want him to swim. I want him to learn how to swim. I'll even teach him how to swim. The funny part is how we are so quick to sign our life away, the waiver, right? Just give it to life. Just give it to circumstance. Like, give it to chance. Like, hey, I'm just going to give it away. But we won't be willing to invest in ourselves, to care for ourselves, to look in the mirror and to say, you know what? This needs to be changing in my life. It's not changing. To look at your financial records and say, you know what? This needs to be changing. To look at your job situation, your relationship situation, say, you know what? This needs to be changing. Because if you're on a steady decline and you're making your way to destruction and rock bottom, I mean, like, don't enjoy the ride. Stop. Press the emergency brake. Say, hey, you know what? I am done with this. I need to make some changes. But the interesting thing about the mindset is that we're not going to make the change. We're going to wait until we hit the rock bottom. We're going to hit the wall. We're going to have a huge trauma that's going to flip us upside down. That is the reality. And that is not a good reality. That's not a reality that you should be proud of. This is a reality that you should want to change and that you should want to adjust. But we won't. Why won't we? Well, they say comfort is the enemy of progress. And that is so true, because when we're trying to progress in life, we have to get uncomfortable. Getting out of our seat sometimes can be uncomfortable. Confronting that enemy, that demon, that trial, that challenge, whatever it be, can be uncomfortable. So how can we get used to being uncomfortable? How can we get out of this mindset of, well, we found comfort already, right? We're far away from the cavemen, where the cavemen, they used to have to worry about going out and getting food and gathering berries and making sure their cave didn't have anything that's going to take them out. And we are now living in these wonderful big houses where we have electricity and we have running water and we have cooling air and we have heat to keep us warm. Guess what? We have surpassed the elements. Survival has become very easy. And if even something bad happened in our life, we call 911 and we say, hey, we need some help. We need some assistance. Help us. Save us. The lifeguard was there to save us. But the reality is no one's going to come save you. Not in your life. No one's going to break down your door and say, hey, I'm coming to save you. No one's going to, pull you out of the line and say, hey, I'm here to take you out of line so I can bring you to the front. Everyone is waiting for their turn. Everyone is clapping until it's their time. I'm telling you to go get it. It's the interesting thing about mindset, right? Is that we have the potential, we have the capabilities, but we don't have the drive. Where do we get it? Where do we find the drive? Well, there's multiple places that you can find the drive, right? You can read motivational books or stories, or maybe you can wait for a trauma to happen in your life, which most people do, and I don't recommend that. You can get a coach, of course, mentor. You can, find books that are going to change your life. I mean, you can go to Google and you can find like 25 books or 100 books that you must read in your life. And I probably already read all those books before. Will those books change your life? And the answer is no. They won't change your life. They will change your perspective, and your perspective can help you implement some changes into your action. And if your actions have the right changes necessary, then yes, you can change your life. Reading one of my blogs, for example, that talk about these books and all of these concepts, getting a financial advisor, helping you with your finances. Yes, these are all good things, right? These things are going to help create prosperity. But there's a difference between prosperity and abundance. Prosperity means that, hey, I'm living good, right? I don't have to worry about the mundane things in my life right now. But the key definition term there is right now. I'm living a prosperous life right now. For example, we can look at great empires, Constantinople, Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, even in America today. How everyone has gone from these prolific figures living in prosperity to now we are slowly on a decline. We can see the destruction, where the reality is we want to make some changes. We want to make some adjustments, but we're going in the wrong direction and we don't stop. We don't hit the brakes. There is something that we can do though. We can change up our mindset a little bit. We can try some new things, tips and tricks, if you want to call it that. Sometimes things cannot be saved. Sometimes you're going to lose something and you might feel at the moment it was the wrong choice. It was a regret. Oftentimes, that thing that we have to relinquish is our ego, our weaker self. The mindset has the capability to be strong and powerful, but yet it also has the potential to be weak and fragile. Most people allow their mindsets to be weak and fragile. And even when I work with clients, we always find point, and I mean almost always. I know always is a fighting word, or it's like an absolute word. Always is not so much of like it happens all the time, but it happens like 98.9% or 99.9% of the time, like what they put on the Purell, right? You can't use an absolute of 100 because there's always that small factor where it might not happen. But almost always, I find something that's stopping them. And I'm like, listen, can you not hear yourself? What you just said. You just told yourself a limit. And that limit is stopping you from being great and from going after what you need to do. It's keeping you in this rat race. That's keeping you in this circle. Can you not see it? And oftentimes we can't. We can't see our blind spots. We don't have those blind spot sensors that are like in our car. Sometimes we can get a feeling, right? We can say, like this feeling doesn't feel good. Like I don't know what I need to be feeling, but this is not it. So some people make some adjustments. The reality is most people are not going to make the adjustments. Most people are going to just kind of keep on cruising to, that end point where they run out of gas. My kid, he has a tablet and he has educational material on there. And then I also recently put a couple games on there because I don't want to be one of those parents that it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, I don't know, who is super strict when it comes to what they can and what they can't be doing and what they should be partaking in. When I was young, my parents, they let me play video games and they let me watch cartoons and things along those lines. And of course, I found my way. Would it have been a better situation if I said, I'm only going to give you the good stuff. I'm only going to give you the happy moments. I'm going to give you everything but the fluff. And I said to myself, how could we call this life if we only give people the good stuff, the things that we want to give them? And I understand as a parent, you want to instill values and beliefs in them, but that can be something that we can be flexible in. I don't want to be too rigid because I understand at some point I'm going to have to be flexible. So I might as well start right now. So I gave him a little learning video game where he has to drive a car and the car picks up shapes and stuff like that. Eventually, the car runs out of gas if you are not able to pick up one of the fuel cells that is in the game. Now the guy's just walking. And the progress is taking a lot more time because in a car you go faster. When you walk, you're going to go slower. So even that, the character is now moving at a slower pace. And it's almost astounding because as a parent, you should be looking at your kids like what they're looking at and looking at their facial expressions and stuff like that, because you can see if they're learning, is it good, is it bad? And one of the things he made a connection with is I'm going to move faster with a vehicle versus this guy is walking. So in his game, even though he's looking at the same screen, the same monitor, he can see this discrepancy. It's like, wait, what in the world? I lost my car because I don't have any gas. How can I get more fuel? Well, I can, number one, make sure I jump and I get it when it's time, for me to, get the fuel cell. But not so much jumping and being trained like dolphins. I think that's the wrong way to put it. But in the sense of reaching out and getting what you need. Some people need help. Some people need some assistance, right? Like that man that was going under at Barton Springs. He needed some help. Barton Pools, whatever. He needed some help. But he wasn't reaching out to help himself, and he wasn't reaching out to anyone that was going to help him. He was in this fight by himself. Now, I understand when you're drowning, you can't ask for help, but if you can't swim relatively, you can start splashing and you can kind of make your way up out of water really quick and go, help, help. It's a possibility. Most people are not even going to try to fight. They're not going to try to fight. One of the last stories I want to tell, and I have talked about this story before, but it's such an interesting story, where there was a young guy, a young entrepreneur. I hate the word entrepreneur, but there was a young man who wanted to be a businessman, and he found a mentor who was successful, and he tells the mentor, hey, I'll do anything. I want to be successful like you. And the mentor says, oh, are you sure you want to be successful like me? And the young man is like, yes. And then the mentor says, okay, meet me at the beach, 5:00 in the morning. And the young guy goes dressed in his best suit and tie and shoes and everything. And the mentor is kind of there with beach wear. The young guy was kind of confused. It's like, what are we doing here at the beach? The mentor just said, do you want to be successful? He goes, okay, well, walk me into the water. So they start walking into the water. Eventually, now the water's up to his knees, and the guy's like, wait, what are we doing? I thought you're here to help me to be successful. He goes, if you want to be successful, keep on walking. And then eventually he goes up to his waist, then his chest, then his shoulders. And now he's barely on his tippy toes, struggling to keep his head from going underwater. The guy's like, this is crazy. The young man says. The mentor says, I thought you wanted to be successful. The young man says, I do want to be successful. And at that point, the mentor started to drown the young man, like put him underwater. And so the young man is fighting for air, fighting for a breath, fighting for a chance of life. Eventually, the mentor, the guy, he lifts him up out of the water, the young kid. And the mentor says to the young man, as soon as you want success, as you want to breathe like you just did, you won't have it. Think of that in every aspect of your life. Marriage, career, money, love, fame, fortune, prosperity, abundance, right? You get to choose the limit. Some people, they accept a very low limit. Think of if your house is worth $250,000. I'm going to come in, I'm going to say 183. You're going to say 183? Are you crazy? And I'm going to say, listen, this is a buyer's market, not a seller's market. You're not getting 250. I can give you 183 cash, or you can try your luck and keep this house on the market for another year. You decide. Most people, they're going to be hurting for the cash, right? Because they're paying property taxes and they're doing all of this maintenance on this house that has to be there. Maybe new roof, plumbing, something happens in the house, right? They don't want to be liable. They just want to get rid of it. They want to move on with their life. So they'll say, okay, 183. Or they might come back and say 190. I just got that price down, $60,000. Okay. We can make that big adjustment in our life where we can lowball something or someone and we can get a favorable result for us, but not so much for them. Right? They wanted 250. But in life, we are almost always the seller. We are always trying to sell. Like, this is what I have to offer you. And people are like, this is what I'm willing to give you for what you have to offer. And sometimes we sell ourselves short in all aspects, in all regards. So how can we start to give our mindset a more permanent figure in the sense of our value? It could be intrinsic, right? Because I talked about that idea where, one of my mentors early on, 2017, before even the business, he says, how much are you worth? And I'm like, I'm priceless. That was not the answer he wanted, I'll tell you that much. But it's a very interesting concept. Our mindset when it comes to evolving ourselves and changing and enhancing is interesting. Many people, they find themselves a little spot they call life and they stay there. But life is this whole thing is this way and that way and it's everywhere and it's all around us. Are you paying attention? Are you trying to get to as many places as possible? And if you are in one place and you feel like you're stuck, that's when you have to move. You have to change. And I encourage everyone to check out the links in the description box below. Send us an email, coachinginsession@gmail.com. Begin the process for some better change in your life. Because the interesting thing about mindset is that you can change your circumstance, your situation, but many people won't. But they all have the possibility to do so. So if you have found yourself in a situation that is almost like an habitual thing, it's almost like a reoccurring process, it means you're in a loop. And it means you have to get out of that loop. Imagine if you were on a roller coaster and you kept going on that loop and the loop and the loop and you start to get nauseous, but you are still on that loop and then you start to get dizzy and then you start to go in that loop and that loop and that loop, and then you start to get hungry, but then you're still in that loop and you're on that loop and you're on that loop, and then you start to get tired, but you're still in that loop and you're still in that loop. That's life sometimes. There is an exit. There is a way where you can finally get off that loop and you can, get to the end. Not the end of life, but the end of staying in this habitual constant that is not progress. So if you're ready for progress, if you're ready for some change, check out the links once again. We'll be here at reverendconcepts.com to help support you on that journey. Don't be afraid to ask for help, even if it's just a consultation. This is what we do. I can't tell you how many people that we just speak with, and on the first session, they feel good, they feel confident. That was the motivation boost they needed. That's all we need. That's all I want to do. Some people, they need the more coaching, right? Some people are not in a financial situation for good coaching or for long-term coaching. So I say, listen, continue to listen to the podcast, continue to read the blogs. Here are some books that you should be reading. All of that is going to help you. We begin by making small changes, small adjustments, and it leads to the bigger and the better picture in life. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.